Okay, there are two obvious things, two glaring problems that the Yankees have that they need to address, and they need to address them like yesterday. And it's indicative in a lot of these games. It was indicative in last night's game. And the two things I'm talking about are defense and leaving guys on base. Okay, talk about the defense first. I mean, particularly recently, they had 7 errors in over 2 games a couple days ago. And one of the main reasons is because a lot of guys playing out of position. Now, there are pass ball issues with Gary Sanchez. He's gotten a little bit better, a little bit with Higgy. Sometimes there are wild pitches going on, which is not necessarily the catcher's fault. The occasional outfield, bad route run or misplay or something like that. But a majority of these defensive lapses are happening in the infield, okay? Odor's playing out of position, unfortunately. His second baseman mostly playing at third base, and it's a different defensive mindset. So it's one of the issues that he's having. Now, he's also having throwing issues going from third base to first base, which is another connective problem here too. And he's been kind of the main guy, even though Gleyber Torres has been historically bad at shortstop. He's made a couple of solid plays recently, but he's just not natural at shortstop. He's more natural at second base, obviously. So Yankees got to figure out what they're going to do there. Now, who knows what they're going to bring in a shortstop this offseason. And if they do, I mean, let's just say they bring in Corey Seager. They have Gio for third base. They have Torres for second. What are you going to do at first now? Are you going to bring back Rizzo? You still have Voit for a bunch of years, and you have DJ. Okay? So are they going to trade Voit for pitching? Voit's been struggling since he's come back, but let's see how he does for the rest of the year. Rizzo, we don't know yet. So hopefully he comes back and makes a good recovery from COVID and whatnot. And he was a really good, he was productive while he was playing. And obviously, DJ is DJ. And even though he's kind of coming around a little bit, he hasn't played as well as he's played the last 2 years, but he's one of the more productive contact hitters on the Yankees. So, and he's going to be here for another 5 years. So, what do they do? So they have to figure that out, that defensive scheme, defensive structure, and how to make it the most athletic and defensively strong infield. Now, this is stuff that these guys are major league players, so they should be working on this stuff on a regular basis, doing scenarios and whatnot during before games and whatnot. And who knows if they do that, but I would be working on defense on a regular basis. Just like the batters are always in the cage, working on their timing, their reps, their batting position and their stances and whatever, and their mechanics. Same goes for infield. And I think this is something they should be working on regularly because they make way too many errors, which lead to way too many runs given up. Guys, at first, going to second one, just bad throws. Now, I'll give it to Odor. He's similar to Chuck Knobloch in 2 ways, okay? Number one, obviously, the throwing issues. Chuck Knobloch had major throwing yips at second base, and he was throwing balls into the stands from second base, which was a disaster. And, it really got to his head. But Odor and Knobloch made up for it a lot offensively. So, Odor didn't look great last night, but quite a few Yankees did not look great last night, but some of them did. But he's been clutch more than he has not been clutch, and so I reserve judgment on Odor. Now, he could use a little bit more production out of him, sure. But again, Yankees are paying him about minimum wage, and Texas Rangers are eating 99.8% of his contract. So until you find an obvious upgrade, it doesn't make any sense to get rid of him. Now, I'm glad that they've called up Oswald Peraza. Hopefully, he gives these guys an opportunity, to kind of move things around a little bit. You can even move DJ to third until Gio comes back and keep Odor at second and give Oswald Peraza some games at shortstop until Torres comes back. He's out probably until about for almost 3 weeks, so with a thumb problem. So there are things that they can modify, and obviously Luke Voigt's taking the bulk of the reps at first base right now with Rizzo out, and that's another thing, that they need to figure out when Rizzo comes back. They have a little bit of a log jam, so defensively they need to make some adjustments, and they need to make some consistent improvements on that regard. The other part of it, which is even more frustrating, is leaving guys on base. First of all, last night it was a slugfest against the White Sox, but they had 14 strikeouts, okay, and versus 8 base hits. They scored 8 runs. They also left 18 guys on base. The night before, they left 20 guys on base, okay? They leave way too many guys on base. They blow way too many opportunities, either striking out with the bases loaded or grounding out or popping out with 2 guys on. They do it way too much, okay? And it is beyond frustrating. They need to... This is where small ball, this is where manufacturing hits and runs, bunting guys over. You bunt guys over, to second and third, then you can hit a sac fly, and hopefully the guy from third can tag up. this is where you manufacture runs. This is what Kansas City do with Merrifield, like stealing second, being driven in by a base hit. Like, they need to steal more bases, utilize Tyler Wade more. He's one of the better base runners, and he's faster. One of the most, fast guys in the team. So is Brett Gardner still. He's not as fast as Wade now, but he's also an intelligent base runner. Gallo's a good base runner. He's got some wheels too. So they need to utilize these guys. Okay, obviously Gallo needs to stop striking out and get on base more often. That's part of it. But the leaving runners in scoring position, even though like Judge was money last night, and Stanton was money, and even Gardner had a great night, Tyler Wade had a great night, they need to clean up this runners in scoring position, leaving dudes on base garbage. It's absolutely detrimental to their success. And these are games that they could be scoring. Like, they lost tonight. They could have scored 14 runs last night against. They could have pounded, just demolished the White Sox. And it shows that they have the ability to do that, but they keep, striking out and failing with too many goddamn guys on base. And it's incredibly frustrating. Beyond frustrating. So that's the other thing that the Yankees need. And they struggle. They didn't have to lose last night. Zach Britton, he gave up the walk-off, but he wasn't the reason they lost. He wasn't. Partly, yes, but not the main reason. They left, again, 18 guys on base. They could have had 12, 13, 14 runs, but they didn't. They got to Hendricks. He, scored 4 in the ninth off of him. So they can beat teams like the White Sox. They can beat teams like Houston, Oakland. Like, they have and they can. But that defense and cleaning that up a little bit in the infield, obviously everywhere, but mostly in the infield, and stop leaving so many goddamn guys on base. They could easily, instead of being 11 games over 500, they could be almost 20 games over 500 or whatever it is. So, and they could be way further up in the standings than they are. But these are the types of things that they keep holding them back from having a better record and being more competitive in the division. Got to clean this up, guys. Absolutely have to clean this up. There's no question about it. It needs to be done, and it needs to be done now. Because, every game, as we get closer to the seasons, and each of these games and series get more and more important. And those little things are going to separate them from the other teams. Those are the things that can expose them and cost them series and games that don't necessarily have to cost them. They can win maybe 5 or 8 more games if they work on these things, maybe even 10. Who knows? But these are the types of things that drive us nuts. And they haven't been consistent all season with pretty much anything. And these are some of the reasons why. Especially the offense, who and I've said this recently, that inconsistency and leaving so many guys on forces the pitchers into more high leverage situations, starters and relievers. It puts more stress on their pitchers. And it's not fair. And this is another, when the batters don't do anything, the pitchers pitch well. When the pitchers have a rough night, the batters do well. They haven't backed each other up much recently. So, and they need to. And they need to go on a tear. That's why we need consistency across the board. We need a bunch of guys to get hot at the same time. Not this all season. They had the same problem last season as well. Just hot and cold, hot and cold, hot and cold. That's not a recipe for long-term success. That's not a recipe to beat the Dodgers, the Padres, the Rays, right? The A's, the White Sox, the Red Sox. It's not. It's the Astros. It's just not. So, we got to clean this up. Hopefully they have a better game tonight against the White Sox. That field was absolutely beautiful, gorgeous, and hopefully the Yankees have a better night. Even though they had a pretty solid night offensively, they need to win these next 2 games. Bottom line, end of story.